friends! If you have watched my Day 13 process video for my December daily album, you will have seen this photo that I used as the base for my spread. What you probably didn't see, or what I haven't shared with you, is that this is the photo that I was starting out with. It's only one of two photos that I had for the entire day, and I was trying to figure out how to take this photo that I love the content of it, but the quality isn't very good. It's pretty grainy, the colors are off, and it's like sized to be a 4x6 photo, and I wasn't really sure how I was going to make this work. So I thought that perhaps it might be helpful for some of you to see kind of the digital process of my hybrid layout, and I thought it might be fun to take a few minutes to share some of my favorite tips and tricks for how I make some of these hybrid pages. So let's start off with some of the very, very basics of working in Photoshop Elements. So that's what I'm using. This is not the full version of Photoshop. This is Photoshop Elements, which is kind of like a simpler or a simplified version of the full Photoshop. Very user-friendly. I have been using this for, I want to say like 10 years, but I honestly don't even know if that's true. Since I started scrapbooking, I have been using Photoshop Elements to do my hybrid pages. And I guess it's one of those things where if it's not broken, don't fix it. So I continue to use it, and I've picked up lots of different tips and tricks along the way, but it's definitely something that I enjoy in my scrapbooking because it's one of the things I can do without having to actually be in my craft space or at my craft table. I can just plop down on the couch with the rest of my family and have my laptop open, or maybe if I'm just kind of like on my own before bedtime, I can climb into bed again with my laptop and just play around. And this is kind of one of the ways that I like to play. So let's just do a really quick introduction. Over on the right-hand side, where you can see my cursor going up and down here, this is called the Layers panel, because when you're working in Photoshop Elements, each time you add something new onto your canvas, it creates a new layer so that you can manipulate and edit just that layer. It's like, I guess if you were painting with acrylics and you're adding on different layers of color. It's kind of the same thing, except we're using photos here in this digital environment. And then the background here, or the space that you're working in, is called a canvas. So right now, the photo that I have open on my screen is my canvas. And then over on the left-hand side, you'll see the Tools panel. So these are all the different tools that we can use to make our edits and to manipulate the different layers. So first thing I'm going to do is I am going to enlarge this photo onto a full-sized page canvas. So I'm going to create a new canvas. I'm going to say File, New, Blank File, and then it gives me the option of how big I want my canvas to be. Well, I want it to be about 7 inches wide and 8.25 inches tall with a resolution of 300 pixels per inch. That's usually the right resolution for print quality. And then I do want the background of this canvas to be white. There's a couple different options there saying that it could be a different color or it could be transparent, but I'm going to start off with just a plain white canvas and say OK. So there is my new canvas, and I'm going to build my layout onto this space here. The thing at the bottom, this is called the Layers panel in Photoshop Elements, and I think this is probably one of the big differences that you'll see between the full Photoshop and Photoshop Elements. This makes it really simple to just drag the different pieces up onto my working space. So I'm going to click on the photo that I want and drag it up onto my canvas, and it is going to fill in that space there. There we go. My computer is lagging just a little bit today. I've got a couple too many things open. So right now I have the cursor tool selected, and that means that I can move this all over the canvas wherever I want it to be, and I'm going to position it right up here at the top. So one of the things that I really like to do is to be able to expand my photo so that I have lots of white space that I can use to add journaling or embellishments or whatever it is that I want to add into that space. So what I want to do is I want to try to make this look like it's all one page. And in order to do that, I need to make this white space of the background on my canvas match the blanket that's up on top here. So I'm going to go and grab this color selection tool. It looks like a little eyedropper. It says color picker tool from the left-hand side there in the tools panel. And I'm going to click on a color that is already in the blanket there. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to grab the paint bucket. And the thing is that I want to make this white space at the bottom this new color. So I need to make sure that when I'm looking at the layers on the right hand side in the layers panel that I'm picking the layer that I want to recolor. And in this case, it's the background. So I'm going to click on the background layer and then fill in that color there. So it's a close match, but obviously you can tell that this is not kind of all one surface just yet. So there's a couple other things that I'm going to do here to try to edit the photo a bit. The next thing I want to do is grab this clone tool or this clone stamp tool over in the toolbar there. And it has a couple of different settings where you can make the brush different sizes. So right now it says the size is set to 99 and you can make it bigger, which would take up a ton of space, or you can make it smaller with just that slider panel there, depending on kind of how much space it is that you're trying to change up here. I'm going to make mine just a little bit bigger. I think just going to try, sure, that looks good. And the opacity is currently set to 72%. And again, you've got this slider bar where you can make it so that you're cloning the entire thing. It's like opaque, or you can do it so it's just a very gentle clone where there's still a lot of transparency there. Because I'm trying to blend these two spaces together, I'm going to stick with the 72%. And then the other thing you can pick too is like how harsh you want this line to be. Mine has got kind of a blurred or fuzzy edge there, and I think that's going to work really well for my purposes. So back onto my canvas here. I am going to pick the area that I want to clone. So I want to kind of blend out this line. So I'm going to select the background layer. I'm holding down the Alt key on my keyboard and then clicking on the mouse at the same time. And that's like telling it this is the set point. So everything that I brush is going to be cloned from this space right here, and it could be anywhere on the canvas. The next thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I am blending out the line from the photo, which is the layer that's on top of the background. So in the layers panel, I'm picking the photo layer, and then when I bring the brush or the cursor back over, it's telling me it's a smart layer, and do I want to simplify it? And I'm saying yes, that's fine, go ahead. And then when I start brushing over here, you can see that it is now kind of merging these two fields together. This is when the picture itself has got like a lot of texture in it. You can see that there's a line over here. It won't go any further. That's because when my cursor was down at the bottom here, it's as though it's running over this edge now of the photo. So I just have to reset my starting point. So I'm going to click on the background layer again, hold down the Alt key on my keyboard, click that space, go back up to make sure I'm working on my photo layer, and I am, and then give it a little love again. Okay, so again, not perfect, but certainly a gentler transition than what was there before. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do here still is I'm going to work on fixing these colors. And in order to do that, I think I'm going to change it to black and white. So I'm actually going to use the Rad Lab, which is like an attachment. What do you call it? It's not an expansion, an accessory. It has a specific name. I honestly can't remember. So I'm going to click on the Rad Lab, which is like color correction and filtering type software that creates a new layer with different edits that are like presets, essentially. So I am going to brighten it up a bit, try to make it a little lighter, and you can do this a couple of times. And again, this Rad Lab has got like a slider panel as well. I honestly don't know if Rad Lab is still supported. I think the company that makes it's called Totally Rad, and they put out some new software that was really more specific for Apple Mac products. And I'm not sure if they're still actually selling and supporting the Rad Lab, but again, it's one that I've been using for a long time. So I picked a black and white filter. I can kind of tone down a little bit as well with this Get Faded neutral recipe that sits on top, but I don't really want it at 100%. I'm going to drop it down a little lower, and it just kind of softens up some of those harsh edges there. And then I think the other one that I might have put on there was a little bit of snap, a little bit, but it almost like defeats the purpose of doing the Get Faded neutral. I'm going to just try it out. And again, I don't want it to be super harsh, but just a little bit of something. Okay, so once I've applied that recipe on top, now my picture is black and white, and it really doesn't make too much of a difference, but I am glad that I still used that clone stamp to kind of soften that harsh edge that was at the photo before. And so there is my new background, and I'm going to use this as the base for the layout that you saw me make in my day 13 process video. Now, the other thing that I thought I would take a minute to show you is how I'm using some of the digital cards. So I've got a couple of fun ones here. These are from Paper Person Shop. This was from, and in my last video, I called it the Bah Humbug kit, but it's not. The kit was actually called Stink, Stank, Stunk, which is still a super fun name. And these digital cards are actually still available in the Paper Person Shop if it's something that you're interested in picking up, just FYI. So I have got one of the cards from the Stink Stink Stunk kit, and it just says not feeling festive, and that is what I used at the bottom here. So these cards in paper form in real life are 3x4, but when you have the digital version, you can make them as big or as small as you want them to be. So here's the photo that we're using as the base, and I'm going to just click and drag this digital journaling card from my project bin at the bottom up onto the canvas that I'm working on. So once that card is up there, you can go ahead and reposition it wherever you want it to be. I'm going to expand the size. I'm going to enlarge this. So I am just, again, using kind of the selection tool, clicking and dragging on the corner. Whenever you're resizing something, you're going to want to make sure that you're pulling on the corner handlebars and not the ones that are at the tops and sides so that it maintains its proportions of the image itself. And I'm just going to reposition it on the page a little bit here to approximately where I think it should be. I think it's probably going to land about there, but now I've got it covering my photo up top. So I need to get a bit creative in how to make it fill in just that bottom space. So I'm going to grab the shape tool from the toolbar on the left-hand side, and I want to make kind of this angled wedge go across the bottom that's going to contain this journaling card. So I'm going to make a really big oversized shape for a second here. It doesn't matter at all what color it is. And I am going to spin it around a little bit so that I can try to get the same angle as what is already on the card below. And then I'm going to pop it into position above the text right there, right about there. And I think that's going to work. So I'm going to say OK. And then over in the layers panel again, I'm going to drag that journaling card up. The layer of the journaling card needs to be above the layer of the shape because what we're doing is we're creating a clipping mask, which means that this journaling card is going to fit inside the shape that we just created underneath it. So I'm holding down the Alt key again on my keyboard, and I have my mouse hovered, or the cursor hovered, right on the line that is between these two layers. And when I do that, when I hold down the Alt key, it makes this little drop-down arrow appear. So click on the mouse at the same time, and now that journaling card is masked or fitting inside of that shape. And I can move it around. I'm using the arrows on my keyboard to nudge that journaling card down a little bit. The shape isn't moving, but the journaling card itself is moving inside the shape, so I can position it wherever I want it to go. So this is kind of how I work. This is one of the ways that I came up with this design before I printed all the pieces to put it together. The other thing I thought I'd show you too, if you're new to this type of work, or I guess working in Photoshop Elements, is that here's another digital journaling card that I used in my project, and I wanted to use this for the base of my journaling. I think I'll pull it up over here so you can see what I ended up doing. Let me turn all these layers back on here for a second. Okay, so here is here's the inside flap that I also printed to go on top of that original photo. And so this is a digital journaling card from Ali Edwards' 2019 December Daily Kit. And I used this to hold my text up on this part of the layout. So one of the things that you can tell, or hopefully see the difference, is that the colors in the title here are different than what they are on this actual journaling card. And I wanted to match the reds. Oftentimes the color difference or color variation between different forms of red doesn't bother me, but in this particular project, it seemed like it really stood out and I wanted them to match up. So I knew I wanted to use these little virus pieces. So I wanted the red in here to match the red on my journaling card. So what you can do then is pick the color. So grab your color selection tool or your color picker tool, click on the color or shade of red that you want, and then move back over to the journaling card that you're going to be using, and then grab that paint bucket tool. Go ahead and fill in, click on each of those letters one at a time, and it will change the color for you. And then instead of that today was, not very merry part, instead of that being blue, I want it to be black. So again, I can go ahead and grab the color of black that I want, grabbing the color picker tool, clicking on the black space of the shape that I want, going back to my new journaling card, and then just, again, one at a time, picking these letters. And so they are now being changed to the foreground color, which is what I have told the system or the program that I want it to be with the color selection or color picker tool. There we go. Okay, so let's go back to this layout that we're working on here. I am going to change the background color of this from the yellow to white. And an easy way to do that is when you're looking at the color swatches over in the color or the tool panel here, on the bottom left, there's these two little squares and that resets it so that the foreground color is black and the background color is white. If you click on the arrows just to the upper right of that, it reverses them. So I want this shape to be white. I have the shape layer selected in my layers panel, and I have the foreground color set to white, and I have the paint bucket tool selected. All of those things together and just a simple click, and now my background here is white. So I can drag my journaling card up onto this space, reposition it to where I want it to land on my layout. I can resize it if I want to, and in this case I did make it a little bit bigger, and position it wherever I want it to be on my background. The other thing I did in this part of the journaling here was I dragged I wanted some pieces of this little virus image to be on my background here on my journaling page. So in the digital version of this card, it is already on a transparent background, and that makes it really easy to work with. So I can just click and drag that layer up onto my canvas here, and you can see that you can see through it. It's transparent. The background is transparent. And I can pop it into position wherever I like, and I can resize it, make some of those pieces a little bit bigger. And then once I've got that there, I want to make this look maybe just a little bit more natural. So I can grab my eraser from the toolbar there And again, making sure I've got the right layer selected over in the layers panel. And then I can just go ahead and erase some of these pieces that would otherwise look like they were overlapped. So I need to adjust my opacity. Down here at the bottom, it's only 71. I need to make it 100% so that it eliminates the whole thing there. Getting rid of some of these extra pieces. And that is a pretty good example of how that works. Now, not all of the cards that you get are going to have this transparent background. So here's an example of, I just made a 3x4 card and I dropped that transparent layer onto a white background. If this is the situation you find yourself in and you want to be able to drag those pieces over, you can actually kind of remove them from the background with this other tool that's over in the toolbar. It's called a magic wand tool. And when you click on that, you can click on different parts of the image and pull those out of the background. So I clicked on this one little virus image here from the background with the magic wand tool, and you can see it's got these little, I'm going to enlarge it so hopefully you can see it a bit better here. It's got this little dotted background that's kind of flashing around the outer edges now. So that means that everything that's inside that dotted background has been selected. I want to pick up a couple of different shapes here. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key on my keyboard, and when I click on those other images, it's selecting them as well, so that I have a couple of different ones that I can work with here. You can pick as many or as few as you want. This is just an example of how to be able to pull an image out of a background. And all of those little flashing guys here, I'm going to make them into their own layer. So I'm holding down the Control key on my keyboard and pressing the letter J at the same time. And now you can see over in the layers panel here, there's been a new layer that's been created, and it contains all of these little virus pieces that I just selected from the background. So I'm going to go back over to the project that we're working on here and show you. So, let me get to the right one. So I can now drag this layer down onto my canvas that we're working on. And you can see, again, they've got a transparent background and I can put them kind of wherever I want to. If I wanted to kind of just extend this pattern up higher, if I wanted to have maybe just a couple of extra little virus pieces floating over here above the journaling card, wherever I want them to be. If there's too many pieces, I can again grab the eraser and just get rid of a couple of them because I don't need them all there. Let's say I just wanted like these two to kind of hover over around the top of the journaling. That totally works. The last thing that I can show you too today is just how I put the actual journaling onto the background layout here. So with that, you're just going to pick the text tool. And then below, you'll get this menu that appears that has all of your different text options. Remington Noiseless is a pretty popular and common typewriter font that usually looks really good. So that's the one that's kind of set there as my default. I'm going to change my text color to be black, and then I can select my font size as well. I can make adjustments there as needed. I'm going to click and drag on the background of my canvas, and I can go ahead and start typing. So I'm going to start typing. You're not going to see anything on the screen just yet. Totally okay. It's just because my text layer is currently sitting underneath the layer that has my journaling card on it. I'm just going to type in like making a bunch of letters. Okay, so you can see it's not showing up yet. That's okay. You just need to drag the order of the layers so that the text layer is sitting on top of the journaling card, and you can kind of see that that has shown up below. So I don't know if that made things better or worse, but thanks for watching. I hope you picked up a couple of ideas of working with digital products in Photoshop Elements to create some hybrid projects. I am by no means an expert, but I have learned over the years with lots of trial and error and using different Google searches and asking Google different questions about how to do different things. These are some of my favorite things. Definitely, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And if you'd like to see more videos like this with my hybrid and digital process, let me know and I'll see what I can do for you. Thanks so much, guys.